And in Matthew 1, we can see back 28 generations before Jesus was born, and it's quite interesting. I see foreigners, I see some scandals, I see some outcasts, but the family that he came from was in anticipation for the family he was coming for. And Matthew 12, 47 to 50, someone told Jesus, "Look, your mother and your brothers are standing outside wanting to speak to you." And he replied, "Who is my mother and who are my brothers?" Stretching out his hand toward his disciples, he said, "Here are my mother and my brothers. For whoever does the will of my Father in heaven, that person is my brother and sister and mother." Jesus redefined family. Family is more than bloodlines. It's more than color of your skin. It's more than all of that. It goes a lot deeper. And in traveling the world, we get to see this big, amazing family that we're a part of. Many of you have already generously given towards I Thirst, and you're helping us to grow God's family. You're a part of that big family. And today, I actually bring you greetings from the family overseas. They always tell us, go back and tell the people that we send our greetings and our love. In Matthew 28, 18 to 20, the Great Commission that we're all familiar with, Jesus came near and said to the disciples, "All authority has been given to me in heaven and on earth. Go, therefore, and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit, teaching them to observe everything I have commanded you. And remember, I am with you always to the end of the age." Go is an action verb. Nations include America. Thank you for serving here. Thank you for going out yesterday to the Hope of Christmas and serving Elmira. We get to be a part of this amazing family Jesus was born for. It's not always easy or pretty or fun, but it's always worth saying yes. That's something I've definitely discovered, because part of me is a definite homebody. I like to be here with my family here, but I've never regretted saying yes when David says, "Okay, I'm planning to go to Nepal, trek 5 hours into the foothills of the Himalayas." Like, okay, yes, I'll go. And I've never regretted it. So David got to visit a refugee camp in July in Uganda, and there's more than 4,000 people there. It was a really desperate situation because there were no clean water sources. He trained 282 families on how to use the water filters, and he passed out a total of 300 there. They happily agreed to share the filters, which meant the whole camp would have clean water. But with the water sources like that, we knew that we needed to have some other help for the 4,000 people. So we built spring boxes, which is this. It's just layering the dirty water source with sand and gravel and then surrounding it with the concrete so it flows through a clean pipe and it comes out much cleaner, takes out all the dirt and sediment. We also had a well drilled and a couple of rain collection systems that they use. David gets to do gutters overseas. That's our business here in the States. And he gets to do these rain collection systems overseas. So it's a much healthier, happier place. And we're going back in January to Uganda and checking out that place. Actually, even a more recent update is that they have these refugees have been given plots of land now. So it's actually where he did the rain collection systems and all the clean water stuff is becoming settled. Like they're actually able to plant their fields and it's their home now. So it's not a transient place anymore. 10 months ago, we put a filter in an orphanage in Tanzania. I got to check on it last month and hear the good news that no one has been sick with diarrhea since January. That's good news. I love that. So our heart is all about providing clean water for people who are sick because of the lack of it. But as we're doing this, God is expanding our heart and showing us more opportunities to grow as family. I had the opportunity to visit the red light district in Arusha, Tanzania last January. It was way outside my comfort zone. I had never done anything like that. I had second, even third thoughts about it. I was the only woman in our group of 5 guys, and the ladies on the street thought I had brought them some new clients. We invited them back to the hotel for a free meal, but they had trouble trusting us. We promised no pictures, nothing like that. And 5 of the most desperate women came back with us, with one guy tagging along. Each one of them gave their heart to Jesus that night and expressed their desire to get off the street. Thank you, Jesus. When I visited Tanzania a few weeks ago, I heard the rest of the story. Aaron, you're doing a great job back there. Thank you. The guy we had met in January was now one of our translators. His name is Gift. He had gotten his high school diploma and was headed to university this next year. He's God's gift. Our partner in Kenya is paying his way through school, and when the university heard his story, they offered him a scholarship for half off his tuition. He's a pretty happy guy. And about 10 months ago, before we went to the streets in Arusha, he had been working for the pimps. And when we came along with our invitation for a free meal, he came for the food, but we had a lot more for him that night. His family has changed, his life has changed, his future has changed, and that's what Jesus has come for. So thank you for your support to us. Thank you for giving us an opportunity to share this morning. Thanks for being a part of the big family. We're all in this together, and God's family definitely crosses bloodlines, and we're glad to be a part of it.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Pastor John and Harold, for letting us come. It's a privilege for us to share what God's doing different places in the world. I want to read a scripture this morning. And it's Mark 5:35 through 42. It says, "While he was still speaking, some came from the ruler of the synagogue's house who said, 'Your daughter is dead. Why trouble the teacher any further?' As soon as Jesus heard the word that was spoken, he said to the ruler of the synagogue, 'Do not be afraid, only believe.' And he permitted no one to follow him except for Peter, James, and John, the brother of James. Then he came to the house of the ruler of the synagogue, and he saw the tumult and those who wept and wailed loudly. When he came in, he said to them, 'Why make this commotion and weep? The child is not dead, but sleeping.' And they ridiculed him. But when he had put them all outside, he took the father and the mother of the child and those who were with him, and entered where the child was lying. And he took the child by the hand and said to her, 'Little girl, I say to you, arise.' And immediately the girl rose and walked." And this story God kind of gave to me right before we went to Nepal in September. And this girl and her situation can represent many things. It can represent hopeless situations. It can represent atmosphere of unbelief and atmosphere of despair. And that's what we found when we went to Nepal. And I just want to read something I wrote about Nepal. They're an oppressed people for thousands of years with a mindset that nothing will ever change, and this is their lot in life. The Badi people of Nepal are at the bottom of the social strata. As their daughters come of age in their early teens, they are expected to follow in the footsteps of their moms and grandmas into a life of prostitution to help support their families financially. A death of sorts on the inside, a death of all future dreams of education, and a shattering of their precious lives. Voices speak with resignation, "Your daughter is dead. Why cling to any hope of change? But into this setting enters the Son of God, Jesus. And he overhears the words and says, "Do not be afraid, only believe." In the midst of the astonishment and unbelief of the atmosphere around him, he speaks words of hope and life. "Little girl, I say to you, arise." And the situation that we found when we went to Nepal is that body communities are communities where there are no fathers. Their prostitution has become culturally acceptable within their communities for generations. And the organization that we're partnering with there, organization called 514, which means the girls between the ages of 5 and 14, they have started a program called Goats for Girls. And what they're doing is they're setting up families with goat programs, and they're having them sign contracts that they will send their girls to school, that they will stop prostituting their family. Anyone in the family has to stop. And what we got to do was interview these girls, and we got to talk to them, and we found out that they had all kinds of dreams and hopes now. They want to be nurses, they want to be trekking guides. There's things that they can dream of now that they never could dream of before. It wasn't even in their future. And what we saw was a little hope in a community changes everything. It doesn't just impact that immediate family. It causes a mind shift in the whole community of, wow, there's something else. There's this fatalistic mindset begins to shift, and they realize there's something else that I could be doing. There's hope for me. And so the organization that we're partnering with in Nepal, then they're called 514, like I said. And immediately after the earthquake is when I made the connection with them. We brought in 1,000 water filters, and we trained their teams, and they would go into the remote communities and install the water filters. And so we've kept this relationship with them ever since. And so when we went down to the work with the body people, water filters was kind of our inroad. They don't have clean water. Their water situation is bad. And so we went in and we went into each one of these little communities. And the first community we worked in, there weren't any Christians, no Christians at all. And so the very first water filter we set up inside someone's house as a demo, actually we did a few, but it might have been the second one. Our translator actually led one of the girls to Christ, and it was the first one in that community to come to Christ. And the elderly ladies kind of sitting on the bed behind her, we were in their living room, they were like, "Now you can go to church." They were actually really supportive of it. And then we asked if anyone wanted healing in that house, and one of the elderly ladies said she had a really bad problem with her knees, and she could hardly walk, and she was in a lot of pain with her hands, and she could hardly move her, open and close her hands. And so we had our translator pray, because we really want to empower the locals. It's not just the white guy coming in to doing that. We want them to do that and learn how to do that. And so she prayed for this elderly lady, and immediately she was touched, and her knees, pain in her knees was gone, and her hands, and she's like, what happened? What happened? And then later on, as we were leaving the village, she ran up to our translator, and she grabbed her, and she said, "I just want you to know that I really am healed, and I want to know more about that. What was that?" And so it was kind of a beginning of a relationship in that community that we can go back next time, and we'll have more of an open door to talk about Jesus. In Nepal, if you try to convert people to Christ and somehow it gets reported to the authorities, you can go to prison for 5 years and be exported out of the country. So we had to be kind of a little bit careful of who we talked to and how we went about things, because we're there with our partner, and we're honoring our partner, and we don't want to put them in a hard situation. But the next community we worked in, we put all the water filters together, and it was really almost like a magical setting. It was like a huge tree, and there's a river, flying butterflies everywhere, and all these women are just sitting in a big crowd, and we're going to teach them how to do the water filters. But before we talked about the water filters, Cynthia came up, and she began to talk to them about the woman at the well, the story in the Bible of the woman at the well, and how she had 5 husbands, and the one she had now was. So she just went through that whole story, and it really resonated with these women. And before she was done talking, suddenly 5 women just stood up, And they came out of the crowd. And this is a small community, so it's a big deal when you kind of are leaving you're making a big step outside of what they've known for generations. 5 women came up and they just kneeled in the grass in front of Cynthia, and they said, "We want to receive Christ." And it was just a moment we'll never forget. And it's something that we want to continue to see over and over again. Then they wanted healing. They wanted prayer for healing. And they all lined up. They all had one issue or another. And I think Lord touched every single one. And so the next time we go back, we're excited actually about going back and just seeing, how they're doing. And I really feel like these body people, they literally are the lowest class in Nepal. And I think they're very open to hope and change, and they've been oppressed, and they've had this mindset that we're just a broken people and that's how it's always going to be, but it's not how it's always going to be. And so one of the things I want to talk to you about also is a huge crisis that's happening in Nepal. Human trafficking is a crisis of epic proportions in Nepal. 20,000 plus girls every single year between the ages of 5 and 14 are trafficked out of Nepal into India brothels, and only 1% ever escape or come back. They all die of disease and murdered or whatever. It's an awful, awful thing. And the organization we're working with, 514, 5 years ago, God really put it on their hearts that they wanted to address this, and they wanted to confront this evil that was happening in Nepal. And they prayed and they asked God, where should we go? And they began researching all through Nepal and to find out the worst places for human trafficking. And they found the worst place, and it was so bad that they actually were helicoptering girls out. It was like organized crime. Because this can't exist unless there's connections in the government. This can't exist unless there's corrupt government. So there's a collusion that's happening between traffickers and the government. And anyways, they said, people advised them, you don't want to go there, it's very dangerous. And they said, that's exactly where we're going. So they went there, and they began by just starting small businesses, making homestays like for trekkers. And this is very beautiful. Nepal is very beautiful. I think they have 1 million tourists every year that come to Nepal. It's their main industry. And so by opening up these communities to tourism businesses and trekking, and the gospel subtly. They can't do big open air meetings like we can in Africa. It's just one-to-one. They know they're Christians and they love Jesus. And well, one of the traffickers got saved, and he became the leader actually of that entire district, and he declared the entire district is going to be a traffic-free zone. And for the last 2 years, they've been there 5 years. For the last 2 years, not one girl has been trafficked out of that area. So, yeah. So my thinking is, God, we can stop human trafficking in all of Nepal, district by district, little community by community. We can do that. And all of us are called to different battles. All of us are called to different purposes. But I feel like it's one of the things God's called us to do, and He's positioning us to be able to make a difference in Nepal against human trafficking. 1 John 3, verse 8b says, "For this purpose the Son of God was manifested, that He might destroy the works of the devil. We have the opportunity to align ourselves with the one who came to destroy the works of the devil. He lives in us and is greater than the evil one who's in the world. This is manifested when we are as He is in this world. When we love one another as God has loved us, children are rescued from slavery and sex trafficking. Prostitutes are given a hope in a future. Families gain access to clean water. Truly, the weightier matters of mercy and justice are lived out. As you delight yourself in the Lord and He puts His desires in your heart, He brings forth these desires into reality." And I believe that's what God's doing. That's what I've seen Him doing in our lives as we are faithful to do what He's put in front of us to do. For us, it was water filters. Year after year doing water filters, and we absolutely loved it, and it's a huge privilege. But I believe, like you've heard, the universe is continually expanding. God begins to expand your vision as you walk in that purpose. He gives you, it begins to unfold, and more things began opening up. And so for us, right now, what's opening up is working with women at risk. So what we want to do is put our efforts into the prevention of human trafficking in Nepal, not just rescue. We believe in rescue. We believe in rehabilitation. We want to put our efforts on both sides of it. But if we can stop it from happening even in the first place, these girls don't have to be destroyed inside. And there's a whole spiritual element to this too. And I want to read a few verses because I believe that God has given us the authority and the mandate to confront the enemy and cast him down. Just want to read a few verses on spiritual warfare. Ephesians 6:12, for we do not wrestle against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of darkness of this age, against spiritual hosts of wickedness in heavenly places. 2 Corinthians 10:4, for the weapons of our warfare are not carnal, but are mighty to God for the pulling down of strongholds. Psalm 17:13 says, arise, O Lord, confront him, cast him down, deliver my life from the wicked with your sword. Psalm 18:32-34 says, it is God who arms me with strength and makes my way perfect. He makes my feet like the feet of deer and sets me on my high places. He teaches my hands to make war so that my arms can bend a bow of bronze. Psalm 144:12, or 1 and 2 says, blessed be the Lord my rock, who trains my hands for war and my fingers for battle. And then Psalm 149, verses 6-9 says, let the high praise of God be in their mouth and a two-edged sword in their hand, to execute vengeance on the nations and punishments on the people, to bind their kings with chains and their nobles with fetters of iron, to execute on them the judgment written. This honor have all his saints. Praise the Lord. And when I think all of his saints, we don't have to be these super spiritual, mature Christians. It says, out of the mouth of babes he ordains strength. And he takes the base things of this world and he confounds the wise. And so if God's given you a job to do, he's going to give you the authority and the power to confront the enemy and cast him down. And I believe that's what he's going to do in Nepal. I believe he's already started, and he's going to continue to do that. Matthew 18, verses 15 and 19 says, assuredly I say to you that whatever you bind on earth will be bound in heaven, and whatever you loose on earth will be loosed in heaven. Again I say to you that if two of you agree on earth concerning anything they ask, it will be done for them by my Father in heaven. Mark 3, verse 27 says, no man can enter into a strong man's house and spoil his goods, except he first bind the strong man, then he will spoil his house. And I just want to declare today that we're going to spoil the house of the enemy in Nepal. We're going to bind the strong man. And I know for each one of you have a certain job and a purpose that God's given to you to do. You're going to bind the strong man, and you're going to spoil his house. When I think of the value of even one life, what is one girl, little girl in Nepal, what's the value of her life? It's priceless. It's priceless. So when I consider that and how priceless even one life is, and then when I consider what God, the tools and the weapons that God's already given to us that are mighty and powerful to the pulling down of strongholds, to me it's a no-brainer. We're gonna use those weapons and those weapons God's given to us to tear down those strongholds in Jesus' name.
My name is Ben Holton, and I work with Border Buddies Ministries. I'm called to work with the teams part of the ministry and the construction as well. I think we have some pictures here. I don't know if they're... Oh, no pictures? All right, that's cool. So, I'm called to work with the teams in the construction part of the ministry. So what I do with the ministry mainly is when the teams come down, we have construction teams that come down, and I help translate now, and I also help drive and help them with whatever they need, how to build and everything like that. While the teams aren't there, I am building and helping them build on the schools. We build on public schools down there. And what the government has done is they've built all these public schools and then they left them and they haven't done anything with them. So what the ministry first started, and it was a prison ministry, and we found out the way to stop the gangs from getting kids is for the kids to get better education. And to get a better education, we have to put more classrooms in the schools. We have to put kitchens in the schools, because that's what helps the kids to be able to eat and be able to hear what the teacher is saying. Because this year we finished a building. We were building on a senior high school, and what we were doing is putting 3 more classrooms up. Hey, there I am. Sweet. If you could go to the next one. Okay, so I'll start there. We have 6 construction teams that came down this past year. A couple of you have been on it. I know the Elmira College girls have come down, and we always love having them down. And we get teams from other churches, and they build on these public schools that I was talking about. And last year, if you want to go to the next slide. Last year, we started this building, and it's in a senior high school, and we put 4 classrooms up on top of this one. It was just the bottom part, and what they were doing is taking one classroom and splitting it in half and putting classes of 50 on each side with a 2x2 wall in the middle. So these teachers weren't able to teach. You couldn't hear anything. If you'd been in there, the kids are loud anyways. I mean, it's a high school, so all the kids are loud. And this year in April, we finished it, and it's all painted, and it looks really nice. And in April, all the teachers and students were able to move in, so they weren't splitting the classrooms up as much anymore. And it was a real blessing. Now, this school was in so much need that Mike is the president of the ministry, Mike Miller, and his wife Glenda. They felt that we needed to really help the school out. So this is the other side of the school. So we blew off the roof there, and we put a second floor on there, and we're only missing a little bit left to finish this off. So it'll probably be done maybe around April or something again. But we're putting 3 more classrooms up there. This is a school of around 1,000 kids. So all of the surrounding areas, all of the schools that we worked at before are all coming into this school for the high school. So we usually work at elementary schools. And it's really incredible. Also, the director had a wonderful opportunity for Mike. He said, there's a little space left. We can't really use it for a classroom. It's kind of small. So why don't you put a Border Buddies office in? So we're going to have an office in a public school. Now we have a sponsorship program that we use. So we're able to get the measurements for the uniforms, because they wear uniforms in public schools down there. We're able to get the measurements and do a lot of the work out of that office. And not only that, because it's kind of a central location to all the rest of the schools, we can put material there and then disperse it from there. So it's really incredible. And not only that, the director has also offered Mike an opportunity to come twice, maybe 3 times, whenever he wants to come a month, 2 or 3 times a month, and put on assemblies for the entire school. And this would be preaching. This would be empowering the kids to be who they should be in Christ, to give the gospel message in a public school 2 or 3 times a month. The director has just opened this opportunity up to us and given us this wonderful opportunity. Now, also we do medical teams. So if you go to the next one. We had a medical team come down in October, and the team saw over 1,200 patients. Now, that seems like a lot, and then you go down to, we had like 4 doctors. So 4 doctors saw all those people. And if you go down to it even more, a doctor up here, I was told, the average patient for like a hectic day, the average patient thing is about 25 patients a day, and that's considered hectic for a doctor up here. And our doctors were seeing 60 to 90 patients a day, with one doctor seeing consistently like 90 patients a day. We were all pretty tired by the end of it, but we saw a ton of it. We had about three or four salvations during medical team. And usually during the teams, as other people have been down on team can tell you, like the Elmira College girls, they come down and you always expect to minister to the people, to the Honduran people. Well, when you come down, you find out sometimes that you need to be ministered to and that you really need the spiritual help. And we've had team members that have come down and haven't been saved and have received the salvation down there. We've had team members come down and want to be baptized because they've never been baptized. So we've had baptisms down in Honduras, as well as the people who have been saved, we've baptized them as well. And it's just been an incredible experience with that. Now with this medical team, we took them out to a place called Comayagua. So if you could go to the next slide. Now, Comayagua is about an hour and a half outside of where we work, which is Tegucigalpa, which is the capital. And outside of Comayagua, it's like a suburb kind of thing. There is a squatters village there. Now, a general used to own the land, and then he died, and everybody's trying to claim this land. There's a bunch of people that live on this land now, and a lot of them live in garbage shacks. They bought the land from somebody, but they don't have a deed to the land. So they're living on there in garbage shacks. They have nothing. And we were able to take the medical team out there, and we were only able to treat some small things, but we were able to see over 400 people there. There's about 500 families living in this condition. And a lot of them live in these garbage homes because either they don't have the money to build something better, or what they had that was built that was really nice, somebody came and tore it down because they claimed the land. Now, we've seen a lot of different things going on down there. Now, the boys' youth group has done a lot of work there. They evangelize a lot there. Mike has had the boys' youth group since the beginning, I believe. He's had a couple different ones, but this one he's had for quite a while. And he's worked with them so much, and it's such an honor to see this boys' youth group. They're from 12 to 25 years old. There's about 20 of them going out and reaching out to these people, their own people, and doing all this work. Now they have, what we used to do is we used to have a couple different groups of boys, and now we have the girls' youth group, so they come with us too sometimes. And we'd go out and we would go to each house and give a message. Well, after a while Mike decided that what we need to do is have one house be the kind of the center of that little zone that we have, and then we have church there. So every other Sunday we're in this community and we're having church. And we're giving church to these people who the nearest church is about 40 minutes walking. So we're able to bring the church right to their house, right to their community, and able to give a message. And there have been so many healings, and there's been demon possession there. Mike has cast out the demon. We've laid on hands, and we're really forming relationships with these people so that we can show them what it means to be a disciple and a follower of Christ. Now, this is the boys' youth group here. You'll see there is a team there as well. The team wanted a picture, but it's very, very loving boys. Very loving boys. Now, what the team members have done is some of the teams have gone out there and they've seen all this, and each team has had kind of their own little theme. The Myra College girls was clothing, I believe. And then the next team was shoes. Now, during the shoe giveaway we also had a line for prayer and healing as well as the shoe line. So we had all these people, we gave away around 600 pairs of shoes. And there were about 200 people still waiting. So there's a big need down there. So all these people are waiting in line, and there's not a big line for the prayer and healing. So as always, one lady goes over and she gets prayed for and healed. It just takes one to believe. And then as soon as she's healed, you see the line start flipping because people want the healing and they want Christ. And they want to see that in their lives more than the material things often. And it's really awesome to see. Now what the team members have done is, because they saw all this, some of them donated money. And with the money, we used it to buy trees and corn seed. And with the trees, that was one of the next team's jobs. They brought in these fruit trees that we bought, and we gave about 3 per house, as many as we could. We actually did 2 teams worth of this. We went to different houses and we planted different trees. We had avocado and a bunch of other different tropical fruits. We had like oranges and stuff like that. And we were able to plant this, and in 3 to 4 years, they're able to get fruit off these trees, and they're able to eat it as they need it or sell it to get money so they can do things. Now, as well in this community is they have like a coalition of lawyers that they've put together, and they pay a small fee, and they're trying to get deeds to their land. So they're on their way to getting the deeds to their land, but it's still a little far off. Now with the corn seed, that was a miracle. We bought that and we brought it in, and the timing was incredible because all of their corn had just dried up. It was all brown lumps on the ground. It was very hot there, and there was no rain for quite a while, and all of their corn had dried up. So we brought it in, and they were ecstatic. They loved it. So we had brought this new corn seed in, and not only was it new corn seed, but it was good corn seed. It was quality. So we gave it to them, and them being the farmers that they are, knew when to plant it. So at the right time, they went in and they planted this corn seed. And before I left Honduras, the corn was taller than I was, and it was green. Now, the cool thing about that was we found out, Mike asked around, and he found out that the corn that we didn't give them, that they had bought with their own money, had dried up and died again. But the corn that we had given in the name of Jesus was taller than I was and green. And they were able, there was one couple that was so overjoyed with the harvest that they had gotten from this, that they actually made this corn mush stuff. That was loud. I gotta hold it up. Okay. Is this better? Okay. So they were so overjoyed with what we had given them that they had made this corn mush stuff and was able to give it to everybody. It was kind of like their tithe that they had given up from the corn that we had given them. Now, also in this community is a girl named Edie's, and she's on the next slide. She's 15 years old, and she's from this community. What was amazing is Mike was going through with donations, and he was giving them away, and she came up to him and said, "Hey, I want to help you. I know the people who most need these things." And he's like, okay. So she led him around to families. She led him around to elderly people that were there, because there are a lot of elderly people there. And he was just amazed by her willingness to serve and help out. And he said, "I really want to give you some of this stuff." And she said, "Don't worry, God will provide." So they kept going, and the donations were dwindling. And he said, "Hey, I've only got a little bit left, and I really want to give it to you." And she said, "That's okay. This last house is mine. So you can give the donations that you want to give me now." So she was so touched by this that he asked the boys, and the boys, they sell every Saturday. So they go through their community, and they sell hot chocolate, they sell donuts, they sell French fries. And what they do is they take a tithe off that. And usually that goes into helping the people in Comayagua. Well, this time, now they're sponsoring her to go to school. So with their tithe money, they're sponsoring another Honduran to go to school. So instead of you up here sponsoring kids down there, like it usually is, we flipped it around. And it's incredible to see, because these boys have done so much, and they're discipling out in Comayagua. And one of the older boys, actually, his name is Charlie, he has been with Mike since the beginning, and he now has his own 2 youth groups, 2 satellite youth groups. So he's taking all the teachings that Mike gave him over the year, and he is giving them to other youth, 2 other youth groups. So it's been amazing. And so the next slide is just a picture of me and some kids, because I like playing with kids. And I really am looking forward to going back, but in order to go back, I need people to help me get there. So if you're willing to sponsor me with a one-time donation, or if you feel led to sponsor me monthly, it would be great. And actually also, there's one more thing I want to add is January 7th, there's a luncheon at 12:30 at the Horseheads United Methodist Church. And that is a Border Buddies luncheon. So Mike and Glenda will be there if you want to meet them and see them. And if you want to go to that, be open. But please consider sponsoring me because I'd love to get back there. Thank you.